Battlefield 2042 will not feature your typical story mode. Instead, DICE has decided to focus on multiplayer. We will learn about this new, fictional, futuristic, post-apocalyptic world through the different specialist characters, the weapons they use, by exploring these massive new maps, and of course, through official material. This story, for now at least, begins over a decade before the events of the game itself, with the start of what DICE has named a decade of chaos. 2031. 10 years is all it took to bring the world to the brink. Rising sea levels, collapsing economies, broken alliances, and the headlines keep rolling in. October 9th, 2033. Hurricane Zeta, the world's first Category 6 storm. January 11th, 2034. Global food, fuel shortages spark second Great Depression. August 8th, 2035. European Union officially disbands following Germany's collapse. The rise of the Nopats. Left behind, the displaced band together into ragtag fleets in search of safe harbour. They are families, farmers, doctors, engineers and soldiers, the once privileged and the impoverished with backgrounds that are worlds apart, forced together, determined to survive. The media calls them the non-patrioted. They call themselves Nopats. The new normal, 2037. Humanity adapts to this new normal. Revolutions in energy, desert irrigation, hydraulic levees, and seawalls save coastal cities, reclaim farmland, and rebuild supply chains. Hope of finding stability leads to some nations reopening their borders. However, with no way to repatriate 1.2 billion people, Nopats become a permanent fixture in all economic, military and social policy making. Many Nopats are still distrustful of the governments that once exiled them and refuse calls to reassimilate. Nopat leaders emerge, inspiring a new identity, unbound to former nationality, drawing a line in the sand between the old world and the new normal. Hashtag We Are Nopats becomes a rallying cry. Amidst the world rebuilding, sparks of friction erupt between the US and Russia, as the last two superpowers both fight for control in this fast-changing world. The Blackout of 2040. A sudden space debris storm creates a Kessler effect, causing more than 70% of all orbiting satellites to malfunction and crash to Earth. The cause is unknown. The subsequent blackout causes mass devastation. Planes crash, communication grids collapse, already jammed global supply chains come to a complete standstill. Prices of oil, grain and coal skyrocket exponentially. Unsubstantiated claims report over 100,000 lives are lost. A world on the brink goes over the edge. No internet, no navigation, no surveillance, no storm forecasts. Geopolitical distrust surges overnight. No one can spy on each other, so no one can trust each other. Both Russia and the US claim the other is responsible for the blackout, while some suspect Nopats were behind it and accuse them of trying to sow anarchy. Former military and combat-trained specialists amongst the Nopats rise up into armed task forces to defend themselves as tensions rise. The brink of war. A food and fuel shortage ignites a shadow war between the US and Russia. To maintain plausible deniability, both sides field Nopat task forces as proxies in escalating conflicts over resources, promising the refugees a piece of what's left. And finally, 2042. Open war is imminent. Nopats have no choice but to choose sides, fighting not for a flag, but for their future. During yesterday's livestream, producers and developers came together to discuss multiple elements of Battlefield 2042. This is what they had to say about the narrative?
I think because this time around we also are trying to enrich because we don't have a single player campaign in 2042, we're infusing the lore of the world via the specialists and via the surrounding elements that you have in the world. And we're going to take that even further during the live service. So it made us approach growing the lore of the universe in a very different way that is embedded in the gameplay. You're naturally exposed to the lore of the world as you're playing the game.
Getting an understanding kind of why you're there as well, and what this specialist that you're playing as, why they're fighting, is also quite interesting.
Yeah, because these no-pats, the non-patriated, they're each fighting for something, aren't they? Because, I mean, whilst this is, it can look like a bleak world, there's definitely a lot of optimism in these no-pats and everything they're fighting for.
Yeah, early on in the concept, we talked about the notion of hope and the notion of purpose, and a notion that's really filled with change. And I think we gotten the chance now to talk about some of the backstory to this game, but that's just really the tip of the iceberg. Just kudos to everyone in the narrative team, back home. There's just so much work that's gone down into the no-pats to the locations. And as we kind of jump into a live service now, there's a lot of secrets we haven't talked about so far, behind all this world. So we're looking forward to taking our players on a journey to explore more about what's actually led up to 2042 and what's next.
I'm a huge fan of game lore in general. I much prefer the search for secrets and details over being fed everything in a campaign mode. Games like Dark Souls or Bloodborne are very famous for this. The story isn't ever made abundantly clear, and it's up to the players to figure things out for themselves. The fact that this sort of narrative is being done here with a Battlefield game makes me very happy. I really like the backstory, it's a cool build up to the game, but I'm even more excited to see where DICE takes this narrative during the live service later on this year, introducing new specialists, new weapons, and new locations that I'm sure will bring even more questions. I'd like to keep covering this evolving story here on my channel for those of you that are interested. For now, that's all we know. But anyway, thank you lads for watching. If you enjoyed, then massage that like button or hit dislike if you didn't. Until the next one though, I'll see you lads later.